Let's turn briefly to Ukraine, because Trump has said he wants to now go and get that sorted, albeit you don't think he's sorted the Middle East. But let's assume for a moment he thinks he has, or at least got it on the right track by getting a ceasefire and the hostages released. Where are we with Ukraine here? I mean, Trump's been talking about, he has several conversations with President Zelensky in which they apparently discuss the use of Tomahawk missiles that America may give the Ukrainians to fire into Russia. How significant is that in terms of an escalation of American involvement? And where are we with the war, do you think?
Well, I think in terms of the war, it's quite clear that the Russians are winning on the battlefield. The head of the Ukrainian army admits that his soldiers are outnumbered 3-1 overall on the front lines and 6-1 in some critically important places. And when you look at the balance of firepower, it greatly favors the Russians. So the Russians are slowly but steadily winning and the Ukrainians are losing. And the question is, what can the West do about this? And the answer is not much. There was talk for a while, as you remember, about secondary sanctions. This is where we put sanctions on India and China as a way of punishing Russia. We've given up on that. So there's no economic leverage
just on
left.
that point, though, it's interesting. I mean, he's put 50% tariff on India, and he cited the fact that they buy too much oil and energy from Russia as the reason. Is that not an indication that Trump wants to try and destabilize Russia economically, and that the best way to do that is to bring big purchasers of his energy, like India, back into line by using very high aggressive tariffs against them until they stop buying Russian energy? Is that not what he's up to, and is that not potentially quite an interesting strategy?
I think one can argue, just as you do, that putting 50% tariffs on India was designed to get India to break off its importing of oil from Russia. But what happened? It didn't work. In fact, it backfired. It pushed the Indians and the Russians closer. It pushed the Indians, the Russians, and the Chinese closer. It just simply didn't work. We have no economic lever. And now we're flailing around talking about the possibility of giving Tomahawk missiles to the Ukrainians. I don't believe that we have the Tomahawk missiles to give to the Ukrainians. I don't believe Trump would give them to the Ukrainians. But even if he does, it's not going to matter very much at all. Remember, we gave them ATACMS, and that was supposed to be a war-winning weapon. We gave them HIMARS. We gave them F-16s. Those were all supposed to be the magic bullets. None of them panned out. The idea that giving the Ukrainians Tomahawks is going to turn this one around, shift the tide against the Russians and in Ukraine's favor is delusional. The fact is, Ukraine is going to lose the war. The West is going to lose the war. That's a bitter pill to swallow, but that is reality.
And if you were President Trump, what could you do that would have an effect on Putin to deter him from continuing to prosecute the war or to expand it?
Well, I think there's nothing that President Trump can do. The Russians have made it unequivocally clear since the start of this war what their goals are. They have three principal goals. Ukraine has to be neutral. It can't be in NATO. It can't have meaningful security guarantees, number one. Number two, Ukraine and the West have to accept the 4 oblasts that Russia has annexed now belong to Russia, plus the Crimea. And then number three, Ukraine has to be disarmed to the point where it doesn't have significant offensive capability against Russia. Those are conditions that the Russians have set out and are determined to stick to. And there's no way Trump can do anything to move them away from those conditions. And the Russians are willing to fight until they create a situation where they get those conditions. And that's where we are today. So President Trump, I think, would like to work out a deal. He'd like to take into account what Russia's demands are and work out a deal. But even if he did work out a deal, he could not get the Europeans and the Ukrainians to agree to that deal. They simply wouldn't accept it.
If Putin wins in Ukraine, though, what is to stop him doing this elsewhere?
The fact that he had so much difficulty and paid such an awful price just conquering the eastern 1/5 of Ukraine means that he does not have the capability to conquer all of Ukraine, much less invade countries in Eastern Europe. When you look at the raw capability of the Russian army, there is no way it can conquer all of Ukraine plus territory in Eastern Europe. Furthermore, when you look at what Putin has said over time, he has never once said that he was interested in conquering all of Ukraine, and he never has once said that he was interested in conquering any territory in Eastern Europe. This idea that he is, interested in recreating the Soviet Union and then the Soviet Empire in Eastern Europe is a figment of Westerners' imaginations.
أظن أن هذا الفيديو من المحلل السياسي جون ميرشايمر كان قبل اجتماع ترامب بزيلينسكي قبل يومين. فقد صرحت فاينانشال تايمز في اجتماع متوتر بالبيت الأبيض حث ترامب زيلينسكي على قبول شروط بوتين للسلام، أي التنازل عن منطقة دونباس وإلا واجه التدمير على يد روسيا. وغادر زيلينسكي الاجتماع محبطا بعد رفض ترامب إرسال صواريخ توماهوك. وقالت إكسيوس: انتهى اجتماع الرئيس ترامب المتوتر الذي استمر 2.5 مع الرئيس الأوكراني زيلينسكي فجأة بعد أن أبلغه ترامب أن الولايات المتحدة لن تزوده بصواريخ توماهوك بعيدة المدى في الوقت الحالي. وصفت مصادر النقاش بأنه صعب ومثير للعواطف، حيث أصر ترامب على ضرورة إنهاء الحرب بتجميد خطوط المواجهة الحالية. ضغط زيلينسكي بشدة من أجل صواريخ توماهوك، لكنه واجه مقاومة شديدة. بعد الاجتماع أجرى زيلينسكي مكالمة هاتفية مع القادة الأوروبيين الذين أصدروا لاحقا بيانات منسقة تدعم أوكرانيا في إشارة واضحة إلى أن الاجتماع مع ترامب لم يكن ناجحا. وقد قام رئيس الوزراء البريطاني كير ستارمر باقتراح العمل مع واشنطن على وضع خطة سلام بين روسيا وأوكرانيا على غرار خطة ترامب في غزة، بينما دعا رئيس حلف شمال الأطلسي مارك روته إلى متابعة عاجلة بين مستشاري الأمن الأوروبيين. وفي اتصال هاتفي أجراه مؤخرا بوتين مع ترامب، طالب بوتين أوكرانيا بتسليم منطقة دونيتسك بأكملها كشرط لإنهاء الحرب. وعرض بوتين في المقابل تسليم أجزاء من منطقتين محتلتين أخريين هما زابوروزيجيا وخيرسون.